My friend, every test you've faced, every fiery trial you've walked through, has not come to destroy you. God does not put his children through the fire to burn them up. He allows the fire to refine them, to strengthen them, to shape them for what lies ahead. Too many people misunderstand the hand of God when trouble comes. They cry out, "Lord, why me? Why am I going through this storm? Why does it feel like everything in my life is being stripped away?" And yet, in those very moments, heaven is working a far greater purpose than your eyes can see. Think about gold. Gold has value, but when it's dug from the ground, it doesn't shine. It's mixed with dirt, with rock, with impurities. To become pure, to reflect its true worth, it must go into the fire. The flame doesn't lessen the gold, it reveals it. That's what God has been doing with you. The heat of the fire wasn't sent to consume you, it was sent to reveal the treasure inside of you. You thought you were being punished, but in reality, you were being prepared. Sometimes, God will let you walk through seasons that make no sense at all. The job you lost, the relationship that broke, the prayer that seemed unanswered, those were not signs that God had abandoned you. They were the very tools he used to teach you what comfort, patience, and endurance really mean. We do not grow when everything is easy. We grow when faith has to take root in rocky soil, and faith that has been tested is faith that can be trusted. You see, if life were always smooth, if everything fell into place without resistance, you would never know the strength that God has placed inside of you. It is only when the storm rages that you find out the anchor holds. It is only when the nights are long that you discover God's hand never leaves you. The fire brings out what comfort never could. I remember hearing the testimony of people who went through deep valleys. Some battled sickness. Others walked through financial loss. Others endured betrayal from those closest to them. And when they came out on the other side, they didn't come out bitter. They came out better. They said, "I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I thank God for what he taught me in it." That is the mark of someone who has been refined, not destroyed. That is the beauty of a life that has endured the test. God has a reason for every tear you've cried. He has a purpose for every night you've spent awake, wondering if he still hears you. The enemy would like you to think those moments were wasted, but God never wastes anything. The pain you've carried, the loneliness you've felt, the disappointments that cut so deep, those were the chisels in the Master's hand, shaping you into the vessel he can now use. Without the fire, you would not be ready for the assignment that's coming. You may have thought you were losing ground, but you were gaining roots. You may have felt like the heat was too much, but God was watching the thermostat. He knew exactly how long to keep you in the fire, and he would never allow it to destroy you. He promised, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned." That is his word, and his word cannot fail. The test was not random. It was not meaningless. It was divinely orchestrated to prepare you for the next season. And here's the good news. If you are still standing, it means the fire has already done its work. You are coming forth stronger, purer, and more steadfast than before. You don't look like what you've been through, because God used the trial not to mark you with ashes, but to crown you with glory. So don't despise the test. Don't curse the fire. Don't think that your suffering was the end of your story. It was only the classroom where God was teaching you what you needed for the next chapter. And now, as you step out, you will see the evidence of his refining work. What once looked like destruction will now shine as preparation. What once felt like abandonment will now be revealed as the deepest proof of his love, because the fire was never meant to consume you. It was always meant to refine you. There are seasons in life when heaven feels quiet. You pray and it seems like your words fall back to the ground. You search for answers and all you hear is silence. And in those moments, the enemy whispers, "See, God has forgotten you. He's walked away. He doesn't hear you anymore." But that is a lie. God's silence is not his absence. His quietness is not his abandonment. When God is silent, it's not because he has left the room. It's because he's teaching you something only silence can teach. Think about the classroom. A teacher spends days, weeks, sometimes months preparing students for a test. During the lessons, the teacher explains, corrects, answers questions, gives examples. But when the test finally comes, the teacher does not speak. The silence of the teacher does not mean he or she has left. It means the student already has what is needed to pass. The silence is part of the process. In the same way, God's silence is the classroom where your faith learns to trust. Some of you know what it is to walk through that silence. You've prayed over your children, and the answer didn't come quickly. You've sought God about your future, and the heavens seemed locked. You've begged Him for healing, for breakthrough, for direction, and all you heard was stillness. But don't mistake stillness for absence. God is nearer in those moments than you realize. Sometimes His greatest work is done behind the curtain, while you wait in the dark, holding on with nothing but trust. Look at the lives of the saints in Scripture. Joseph sat in a prison cell year after year, and I'm sure he asked, "Lord, where are you?" David cried in the Psalms, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever?" Even Jesus on the cross cried out, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And yet, in every case, the silence of God was not the end. It was the soil where trust grew roots. Out of Joseph's silence came a throne in Egypt. Out of David's silence came a kingdom. Out of Christ's silence on the cross came the resurrection that changed the world. We live in a world that wants answers instantly. We want the text back right away, the package delivered overnight, the problem solved in minutes. But God does not operate on our schedule. He is eternal, and He knows that sometimes the very thing you need is not an immediate answer, but the strength to keep walking when the answer is delayed. That kind of strength can only be born in silence. When God is quiet, He is watching how you respond. Will you keep worshiping when the song doesn't change your circumstances? Will you keep praying when the words feel empty? Will you keep trusting when the door remains closed? The silence is not punishment. It is the refining of faith. It is where your soul learns that God is good not just when you see His hand, but when you can only trust His heart. I think of a child learning to walk. At first, the parent holds their hands, steadying every step. But then comes the moment when the parent lets go. Not because they don't love the child, but because they do. The silence of the parent's hand is what teaches the child to walk alone. In the same way, there are moments when God pulls back the visible signs of His presence, not because He doesn't care, but because He wants you to learn that His Spirit is still with you, even when you cannot feel it. Friend, God has not abandoned you. If you are in a silent season, it is because He trusts you with silence. He knows you have matured to the point where you can walk by faith and not by sight. The very fact that you feel the quiet is proof that He is stretching your faith to a new level. And on the other side of silence, you will see His hand move in ways you could not imagine. Hold on to this truth. Silence is not abandonment. It is preparation. It is trust. It is the space where faith grows wings. And when God breaks the silence, you will understand why He was quiet for so long. Because His silence was never the absence of His love. It was the proof of it. Faith sounds beautiful when spoken, but it is only proven when tested. Anyone can say they believe when the sun is shining, when the bills are paid, when their health is strong, and their family is at peace. Words of faith are easy in seasons of comfort. But when the storm comes, when the foundation is shaken, when the sky turns dark, that is where true faith is revealed. Faith that has never been tested cannot be trusted. It is in the fire of trial that the reality of what you believe comes forth. The Bible tells us about storms, and not just as natural disasters, but as spiritual illustrations. When the disciples were in the boat on the Sea of Galilee, the winds rose, the waves crashed, and they were terrified. They had seen miracles, they had walked with the Lord, yet when the storm came, their faith was tested. And in that moment of fear, He asked them a piercing question: "Where is your faith?" Notice He didn't ask if they had knowledge, if they remembered the stories, if they could quote the scriptures. He asked about faith, because faith is not proven in comfort. It is proven in crisis. You see, the storm does not create your faith, but it exposes it. Trials do not invent what you believe. They reveal what is already inside of you. Some of you went through seasons where everything around you collapsed. You prayed, and it seemed like no answer came. You stood on promises, and yet doors slammed shut. Friends walked away. Finances dried up. Your body grew weak. And in that furnace of affliction, you discovered whether your faith was built on shifting sand or on the rock that cannot be moved. It is easy to claim trust in God when nothing challenges it. But when you are lying awake at night, tears soaking your pillow, and still you whisper, "Lord, I trust you," that is faith revealed. When the doctor gives you a bad report, and you still say, "My hope is in him," that is faith proven. When the job is gone, the bills are due, and yet you lift your hands in worship, that is faith shining brighter than gold refined in fire. Think of Job. He lost everything: his children, his wealth, his health. His friends accused him. His wife told him to curse God and die. But Job said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." That was not cheap faith. That was not borrowed faith. That was faith that had been tested and found true. Job's storm revealed what comfort could never show. Maybe your storm has revealed things you didn't expect. Maybe you thought your faith was stronger, and the trial showed your doubts, your fears, your weakness. Don't be discouraged. Even that revelation is a gift, because when God exposes the cracks, he does it to strengthen you, not to shame you. He reveals the weakness so that he can build resilience. He lets you see your limits so that you will rely on his limitless power. And for others, the storm has revealed that your faith is deeper than even you realized. You thought you couldn't survive what you went through, but here you are. You thought the pain would break you, but it did not. You thought the fire would consume you, but it only refined you. And today, your testimony is stronger because your faith was proven under pressure. Friend, don't despise the storm. Don't resent the trial. For it was the very stage where your endurance was proven. It showed you, and it showed the world, that your faith is not shallow. It is not counterfeit. It is not a Sunday only kind of belief. It is real. It is steady. It is anchored in a God who does not fail. You may not have chosen the trial, but the trial has chosen you to reveal the authenticity of your faith. And when you come through it, and you will carry a testimony that cannot be shaken, because it was birthed in the storm. Because faith that has never been tested cannot be trusted, and your storm has proven that your faith is real. In every classroom, there comes a time when the lessons are put to the test. The teacher has given instruction, the homework has been done, the lessons have been repeated, but before graduation day, there is always an exam. No student walks across the stage without proving they've learned what was taught. And in the same way, before God elevates you, before he trusts you with greater responsibility, he allows a test. The test is not punishment, it is preparation. The test is not the end, it is the doorway to promotion. So many people want the blessing without the testing. They pray for God to enlarge their territory, but they don't want to walk through the valley first. They want the crown without the cross, the throne without the wilderness. But God does not work that way. He knows that untested faith cannot carry the weight of destiny. He knows that before he can trust you with influence, with favor, with increase, he must see if you will remain faithful when everything is stripped away. Think about Joseph. As a young man, he dreamed of greatness, of leadership, of elevation. But the path to the palace went through the pit, through slavery, through prison. For 13 years, Joseph's faith was tested. He was betrayed, forgotten, falsely accused. And yet, when the day came when Pharaoh needed an answer, Joseph stood ready, refined, trustworthy. The test was not wasted. It was the very training ground for the promotion that followed. Without the test, Joseph would not have had the character to carry the crown. Or look at David, anointed as king while still a shepherd boy. But instead of a throne, he found himself running for his life, hiding in caves, hunted by Saul. It must have seemed like the promise was delayed, maybe even denied, but every cave was a classroom. Every trial was a test. And when the time came, David didn't just have the title of king, he had the heart of a king. The test shaped him for the throne, and isn't that true for you as well? You've prayed for God to use you. You've asked him to open doors, to enlarge your influence, to pour out his favor. And maybe all you've faced since then is opposition, loss, disappointment. Friend, don't be discouraged. That's not rejection, that's preparation. The test you are in today is proof that promotion is on the way. God is shaping you, molding you, and preparing you to stand in places you could not have stood before. The test is the doorway. That delay you're walking through, it's not wasted time. It's training. That betrayal you endured, it's not the end of your story. It's the shaping of your character. That season of silence, of waiting, of wondering, is not punishment. It's the proof that God is working behind the scenes. And when the test is over, when the refining has done its work, the doors that swing open will make sense of every tear you've cried. Sometimes God tests us with little things before he trusts us with big things. If he can't trust us with the small, how can he trust us with the great? If you can be faithful in obscurity, you can be trusted with influence. If you can be steady in the valley, you can be trusted on the mountain. That's why the test is necessary. Promotion without testing produces pride, but promotion after testing produces humility, strength, and endurance. And hear me, when you come out of the test, the promotion will not just be for you. Joseph's promotion saved a nation. David's promotion blessed generations. Your promotion will touch lives beyond your own. God doesn't lift you up just so you can shine. He lifts you so you can serve. The test is not just about proving your faith. It's about preparing your heart to carry the weight of others when the time comes. So if you're in the test right now, lift up your head. Don't despise it. Don't run from it. It is the very sign that God is getting you ready for something greater. The test is not the end of your journey. It is the bridge to your destiny. And when you have endured it, when you have been faithful through it, you will walk into promotion not as someone unprepared, but as someone proven. Because just as students are tested before graduation, believers are tested before elevation. And the test is always the doorway to promotion. There comes a moment in every believer's life when the winds begin to change. You've walked through the valley. You've cried through the nights. You've wondered if the season of wilderness would ever end. But God is a God of seasons. He does not leave his children in the desert forever. The valley is not permanent. The wilderness is not your final address. What you've walked through was real. It was painful, but it was temporary. And now, by the authority of heaven, your season has shifted. Think about the way the earth turns. Winter may seem long, cold, and lifeless. The trees are bare, the fields are frozen, and the nights are long. But no matter how deep the snow, spring always comes. Nothing can stop the turning of the seasons. And the same God who set the sun and moon in place, who appointed the times and the days, has appointed a new season for you. The valley is turning into victory. The wilderness is giving way to promise. What once felt endless is now giving birth to something new. Many of you have walked through what felt like a barren land. You prayed and saw no fruit. You labored and reaped no harvest. You gave, and it seemed like nothing came back. But friend, don't let what you see fool you. Seeds grow underground before they ever break the surface. Roots take hold before fruit appears. And God has been working beneath the soil of your life, preparing you for the moment when suddenly everything changes. And I'm here to tell you, that moment has come. Your season has shifted. Remember the children of Israel. They wandered 40 years in the wilderness. They ate manna day after day, living on just enough to survive. But then one day, the manna stopped. Why? Because they had crossed over into the land of promise. They no longer had to live on survival. They stepped into abundance. The wilderness was not forever. It was only a passageway to the land flowing with milk and honey. And maybe you've been living on just enough, holding on with weary hands, but hear this, you are not meant to die in the wilderness. You are crossing into promise. Your tears watered the ground of your next harvest. Your prayers have prepared the soil for what's coming. Your endurance has qualified you for elevation. You've walked through the valley, but you won't stay there. You've been tested in the desert, but you won't remain there. The season has shifted. You are walking into a time of restoration. into a time of divine turnaround, into a time when what the enemy meant for harm will be used for your good. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're saying, but I still feel the pain. I still see the struggle. I don't see the promise yet. Friend, don't let your feelings deceive you. The shift is not always seen immediately in the natural. It begins in the spirit. Just as dawn breaks before the sun fully rises, your breakthrough has already begun. The first light is shining, and the full day is on its way. God is saying to you, you've endured the night, you've carried the burden, you've stood the test. Now step into the new thing I have prepared. You may not have understood the path you walked, but every step was leading here. Every tear, every trial, every unanswered question. It was all part of a greater plan, and now the plan is unfolding. Don't keep living as though you are still in the valley. Don't keep walking as though you are still wandering. Lift your head, square your shoulders, and take the next step with confidence. You are not who you were in the last season. You have been refined, strengthened, and prepared. And now you are entering into victory, because what was once a valley is turning into victory. The wilderness was only temporary, and now you are stepping into promise. So many times in life, we look back at the road we've traveled and wonder if the pain had any meaning. The tears, the broken dreams, the nights when you thought you couldn't go on. It's easy to feel like it was all wasted. But let me tell you, not one tear, not one moment of suffering, not one step in the valley has been wasted. God is too wise to make a mistake and too loving to let your pain go unused. The trials you endured were shaping you, preparing you, and positioning you for something far greater than you could see at the time. The truth is, His glory is still ahead of you. We live in a world that tells us pain is pointless, that suffering is a sign of failure, that if life isn't easy, then something is wrong. But the Word of God teaches us something very different. It tells us that suffering produces endurance, endurance produces character, and character produces hope. That hope does not disappoint because it's rooted in the faithfulness of God. You see, the very pain you thought was breaking you was actually building you. And the season you're walking into now carries restoration, joy, and divine purpose far beyond what you imagined. Think of Joseph, who endured betrayal, slavery, and prison. For years, his pain seemed senseless. But the day came when he stood second in command over Egypt, saving countless lives, including the very brothers who once sold him. He could look back and say, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good." That is the story of every child of God who refuses to give up in the middle of the pain. It may look like the enemy had the final word, but when the story isn't finished, glory is still ahead. Your pain was a seed, and those seeds go into the ground, hidden, buried, forgotten. They are not dead. They are waiting for the right season to spring forth into life. What you buried in tears, you will reap in joy. What you thought was lost forever will come back around in ways that only God could orchestrate. Restoration is not a possibility. It is a promise. And that restoration will not just return what was lost. It will return it pressed down, shaken together, running over. God doesn't just replace, He multiplies. He doesn't just heal, He makes whole. He doesn't just bring back what was stolen. He turns it into a testimony that lifts others when they are weary. That is the glory ahead. Maybe you're listening today and you feel like your life has been defined by pain. Maybe the disappointment has been so heavy that you can't even imagine joy again. But hear me. Your story is not over. God specializes in resurrection. He brings beauty out of ashes, joy out of sorrow, life out of death. If He can roll the stone away from the tomb, He can roll away the weight that's been crushing your heart. And here's the powerful thing. His glory ahead is not just about what He gives back to you, but what He does through you. The pain you endured has equipped you to comfort others. The struggles you faced have given you compassion for the broken. The valley you walked through has given you a voice that others will recognize as real. You won't just walk into blessing. You will carry blessing to others because of what you've survived. Don't let the enemy tell you that it was for nothing. Don't let him convince you that your best days are behind you. God is a forward, moving God, and His glory is always greater than your past. No matter how dark the night, the sunrise is still coming. No matter how heavy the storm, the rainbow will appear. No matter how deep the wound, healing is on its way. So lift your head, because what you endured was not wasted. The season ahead of you is filled with restoration, joy, and divine purpose far beyond what you ever imagined. Because God's glory is still ahead. Friend, remember, your tests had a purpose. God's silence was not abandonment, and your trials revealed the strength of your faith. Every test was the doorway to promotion. Your season has shifted, and His glory is still ahead of you. Hold on to that truth as you step into what God has prepared. If this word spoke to your spirit, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this message so others can be encouraged too.